that's okay. Right, can everyone see that okay?
Yeah.
Great. Okay, so welcome to today's Communities Creating Homes event. Today's event is around knowing your vision, values and purpose. It's run under the Explore phase of the programme, which I'll explain a little bit more in a moment. The Communities Creating Homes programme is a partnership between the Wales Cooperative Centre and the DTA Wales. It's funded by the Nationwide Foundation and Welsh Government. So as I mentioned, this session is being recorded and will be available on the Communities Creating Homes YouTube channel. Just quickly to introduce Claire White, who is on the call, and she's going to be helping with the Zoom facilitation and keeping an eye on the chat as well. If you could please mute yourself when you're not talking, and any questions in the chat as we go along. There will be a fair bit of group discussion as well, so there'll be opportunity to talk later. So just to introduce myself, I'm Nicola Perkins. I work for the Development Trust Association for Wales. I'm the manager of the Explore phase of the Communities Creating Homes programme. The DTA has a track record of working with development trusts, community regeneration companies and local communities to empower them to take on community ownership of assets and enterprises. We've been championing sustainable development practices in Wales since 2003, and we're part of a wider UK movement of peer-to-peer support for community-led action and a practitioner learning network. The DTA seeks to facilitate the transfer of knowledge and skills from one community to another, hence why we're involved in the mentoring phase of the Communities Creating Homes programme. So just quickly, as I've mentioned, it's a partnership delivered in partnership with the Wales Cooperative, and at the moment the project runs until March 2022. We offer help for people to develop their own cooperative and community-led housing schemes. Community-led housing comes in all shapes and sizes, and the key is the development of genuinely affordable homes. There are many different motivating factors, and each scheme has different opportunities and challenges, but the Communities Creating Homes programme is able to offer support every step of the way. So just quickly, the project's divided into 5 sections, each beginning with E. The engage is the initial stage, so that's very much sort of inquiry. This is where you've potentially never really heard of community-led housing or cooperative-led housing, and we're here to be able to introduce that idea to see if that would be a good fit for what you're trying to achieve. Explore, which I mentioned, is facilitated by the DTA and myself. We offer events, mentoring support and a small grant of up to £2,500 to help your group explore the potential of developing a CLH scheme. And then facilitated by the Wales Cooperative Centre are the later stages of the programme. Enable is basically when you're ready to cement your ideas, excuse the pun. So you're ready to sort of move forward in establishing your housing project and making those things a reality in terms of business planning and financial modelling. Expand is for those organisations that already have some community-led housing and are looking to increase that. And there is a strong element of education and ability to influence as well throughout the programme. Just to mention, we have a very strong Wales community-led housing network, which is run on the 3rd Thursday of every month from 12 o'clock till 1:30, sorry. The next meeting is this week, the 17th of June, and Julie James will be introducing the session. We will be looking at how community-led housing can take action on climate change with a focus on retrofits. And then I will be facilitating the one in July, which is around working in partnership with housing associations. So understanding what that can offer to community-led housing groups. And I'd just like to highlight, we have another Learning Together event next Monday at the same time as this event, and we will be hoping to offer another couple of events after this as well. So next Monday will be a focus on legal structures for community-led housing, and we're hoping to offer business planning and financial modelling for later sessions during July. So just to introduce today's session, so as a coordinator for Explore, I find that lots of groups are super enthusiastic to push forward as quickly as possible to achieve their goal. But I find that as opportunities present themselves along the way, sometimes there can be differences in opinion between the group members as to whether those opportunities are the right thing for the group. By putting in the work along your group's journey to ensure that every group member has the same ideas and visions of where you're headed, it can sometimes reduce tension and disagreements somewhere down the road. So we're not just talking new groups here, we're also talking established groups, because as new group members join, they've got different ideas and they bring different skills into the group as well. So it is something that's really important to keep revisiting. So I'd just like to introduce our session facilitator today. Megan Evans will be helping facilitate, and she is a consultant, facilitator, coach and project manager. She's worked for 30 years with the third sector and public organisations of all shapes and sizes to develop their skills and knowledge in order to meet new challenges. She's striving to improve organisational performance, delivery and develop vibrant communities using a solution focus and consensus building approach to bring people together and move organisations forward. I will mention that Megan is a specialist mentor on the Communities Creating Homes programme, and for any group that are registered with the programme, they would be able to access some additional sort of follow-up support from her as a result of today's session. So please contact me if you're interested. So that's it from me, and I will pass over to Megan.
Thanks, Nick. That's great. 30 years. I'm not that old. I actually am. I've been around for quite a long time, but I'm still here, and I'm still feel very passionate about community groups. But I have over the years been involved with many, and had challenging times with many, and have had wonderful times with many as well. So I want to share some of my knowledge and experience today. First of all, though, I think maybe talk a bit about the sort of plan of the session. So we're going to be finished at 1:30. That's right, isn't it, Nick? Yeah, we finish at 1:30. So we've got an hour and 15 minutes. We're going to I'm going to share some slides. It's nice as a small group, so please put questions in the chat. But if there's something really you want to ask, just either put up your hand, not that I might not be able to see it if I'm sharing slides, or just speak out, and that'll be fine. So we're not going to have a break. We're going to power on through. But if at any point you think, you know, the doorbell rings, it always does, doesn't it? Especially at lunchtime. Then please, you know, just say in the chat that you're off for a second. Okay. So I'm going to share my screen for a second. Let's see if I can do that. Yes, I can. There we are. And I've got my first slide. I think you can probably see that. So we're talking about the importance of group vision, mission, and values and mission in relation to community-led housing. But actually, the information that I'll be giving you today applies to any group, I would say, any group that's starting to look at maybe becoming more, forming themselves as a charity or a legal structure of some sort. So the big questions that every group needs to be able to answer, and so often I find they can't. So this is something to always keep in the back of your mind. Why are we here? Why are we forming a group? Why are we doing this? It's always a big question. Why are we doing this? It depends how the tone you use, but why are we here? Why are we doing this work? You should be able to very easily answer this. what are we going to do, or what do we do, and what do we not do? And that's something to keep in the back of your mind. We're here as a group, forming, buying a community building. What are we not going to do? We are not going to build a swimming pool in the grounds of the building, or we are going to. It's really good to have a clear idea of what you're not going to do at the beginning.
Sorry,
and then,
Megan, just to interrupt,
yes.
we can't see the presentation side of things. We can just see the slide sorter. So I don't know if you can full screen. If you've got two screens, then sometimes it shows on the other side.
I'm so sorry. Let me. The joys of Zoom, the joys of Zoom. There we are. So the big questions are, there we are. Do apologize. So why are we here? Why are we doing this? What are we going to do, and what we're not going to do as part of our overall plan? And then what are our group's values and principles, our bottom line? And we're going to be talking about this today. So I'm going to start. I don't want to give you loads and loads of theory, but this is something that really helped me when I was, I'd been involved in a number of groups, and I couldn't quite understand maybe where there were issues, and I couldn't figure out why sometimes we were really doing well cooking with gas, and when other times we weren't. And this man, Bruce Tuckman, it was 1965, so quite a while ago, he came up with this theory of group development. And what he said was that there are 5 stages. First of all, he said 4 stages, but 5 stages to groups. And the first one is the green farming. And that's where people learn about each other. So you come together and you think, oh, this is a lovely group. You discover the nature of the task that you're setting yourself, maybe building housing in or redeveloping a building to form community housing, taking over a community pub, whatever. So there's discovering what the group's going to be doing. People tend to be thinking quite independently at this time. They're coming together thinking, I want to develop this community building to be a community library. I want there to be housing. I want there to be cafe. People come with their individual views. They're usually on their best behavior. People are pretty good at the forming stage. Everyone's enjoying meeting people, but they do tend to be focused on themselves. The next stage is the storming stage, challenging each other. And this sometimes can be just when the group starts to sort itself out and gain each other's trust. And it might be that I think, well, I thought I understood what Peter said, but you know what, now he's talking about developing the community cafe when I actually feel that we should be developing the housing part of this building. So there's a little bit of checking each other out, maybe challenging each other's opinions. Sometimes at this stage, there's real hostility. And I come in and I say to Nick, I go, no, Nick, I don't want a pottery in this building. Never in a million years. I hate potteries. I love potteries, by the way. And Nick and me have a real battle about whether we should have a community pottery as well as it being housing. And it can be that sometimes I then literally storm off because I say this is not the group for me. So sometimes you can lose people at this stage. But in good groups where you've got a good leader or a good sense of where you're going, then myself and Nick can have a chat about the pottery and realize that actually I can live with having a pottery, and Nick says, well, I can live with it not being 500 square foot but only 10 square foot or whatever it is. So this storming stage is quite an interesting one. It can be quite fraught, or it can be just a little bit of I never thought we were going to do that. And then we have the norming stage, which is when people are getting more into the project, starting to really work to each other. Usually any disagreements have been sorted out and the group is starting to come together. Then we move on to the performing stage. And as it says, performing, it's actually delivering what you'd hoped to do at the beginning. Really you're cooking with gas is the phrase that I tend to use. So it's when people are focusing on the common goals, they're actually delivering, the beneficiaries are really getting what you hoped initially that they would get, and the sun is shining literally on this symbol. And then we have adjourning, and sometimes actually this is called mourning as well. And that can be maybe the project finishes, or maybe a phase finishes as part of your group. It could be that a couple of really key people leave. And that can mean there's a whole change in the dynamics of the group. Sometimes there's celebration, sometimes this is when the group disbands. Other times, new members join or new projects are started, and you go through that forming, storming, norming, performing, adjourning stage. So I told you that because for me, when I've been sitting or lying awake at night being part of a community group, and there's some issues and I can't quite figure it out, I often think, well, where are we in this stage? And it can help me from either leaving a group or getting involved in conflict, or just spending a huge amount of my mental energy trying to figure out what's happening. And Shelley said, been through this cycle about 4 times. Yeah, thanks, Shelley. That's really interesting. We need to keep confidentiality here. You know, we've got to be thinking about how much we share. But I've certainly been at stages of groups where I've been so excited with a new group, and I've joined it and I've thought, yay, this is it. And after a few meetings, I've thought, you know what, this isn't what I want, or yes, I'm going to really literally roll up my sleeves and get on with it. And I've been in groups that are very long standing. They've been there for years, and a new member arrives and suddenly there's something funny going on. And we're going through that storming phase where they're trying to figure out who we are. They're maybe challenge us on some of the issues. So I think that if you keep that in your head, it can help you take that step back and not be too emotionally involved in your groups. Hands up if you're emotionally involved in your group. I'm emotionally involved in all groups I work with. Yeah. You feel really passionate, I would guess. It's in your heart. And if somebody comes in and disagrees with you, oh, it can really, really get to you. So this can help you take that step back and just say, maybe we need to clarify for the new person or for the whole group what our mission is. Why are we here? What are our what's our vision? What are we trying to do? How will we know when we're doing it? And what are our values? You know, what are our values? Because it sometimes can be that people come in with very different views of what you're expecting to do as your group. Yeah, and sharp learning curve. Yeah. And we all know groups, and they tend to come to, you know, the BBC. I'm not, maybe Kids Company, but Kids Company was a very complicated group and there was lots going on with that. But certainly they do tend to make the news when groups, especially high profile ones, when some of these issues really come to the fore. So any quick questions about Tuckman's theory? I don't know if it's helpful, but it saved me from killing various members of groups I've been on. I'm being honest here, you know. It's helped me take a step back. Anybody? Does it resonate? Resonates with Shelley? Lydia, I can see you nodding. Jackie, Tanya, okay. Yeah, I mean, it can even happen on a holiday group. If you go on holiday with a group of friends, you can see all these things happening. It's human beings, isn't it? It's human beings. So I'm going to move on. I'm going to share my slides again, hopefully, and please tell me if I'm not sharing the right slide. Can you see it okay, Nick? Is it all right?
Yes.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, there we are. Okay. So one of the things, and I'm not going to be talking all the time, but one of the things is around group vision. I think, and I think most people who work with groups, with charities, with community interest companies, feel that having a vision is really, really important. And the group vision it's an achievable, and the word is achievable, dream for the future, something that you really feel that you can achieve. It's how you would like the world to be. We want the world where? where there's no fighting is probably never going to happen, but it is where in a country where there are less intertribal conflicts, say. It needs to be inspirational and motivating to the group and beyond. So people look at the vision and think, yes. And it doesn't limit the scope of the group, but it's not too vague. So everyone should have a safe, secure, and affordable home is shelters. And I think that's achievable in our country, certainly. I would hope it is, but it's quite a vision. Okay, and why is this not happening? Gosh, I sometimes loathe. There we are. Loathe slides. They seem to go funny on this computer. Without a clear vision, if your group doesn't have a clear vision, it may work well as individuals rather than the group. It may well work as individuals rather than the group. So people have their own agenda, or people are pulling in really different directions. They might say, I never wanted to try and stop homelessness, says somebody in shelter. I always knew that there would be. I just wanted to make sure that, I don't know, young people had an affordable home. I wasn't interested in everyone. So people can drag you in different directions if there's no clear vision. And you can't easily plan for your work because you don't actually know what you're trying to achieve. Has anyone been in a group where there isn't a clear vision? I'll stop sharing for 2 ticks.
I think this can happen a lot around funding, and funding can be a driver for moving away from your original vision, but it is chicken and egg at the same time because you need resources to be able to do something.
Absolutely. Money is a big driver for many groups. And in a way, of course, you know, you often, not always, but you do often need money. Lydia.
It's also sometimes a situation where you start off with some people you're working in co-production with, and a major co-production partner changes and they have a totally different agenda. Yeah.
Right. So they're coming in, and sometimes quite powerful people with a completely different agenda who think, oh, well, I'll use, this sounds wrong, but I will use this group to achieve my own aims, and I will skew the vision. Yeah. Thank you, Lydia.
I know I'm from Reading, so I feel somewhat like an imposter, but that's, I've worked with a number of community organisations here in the west of the UK, of England, and yes, on more than one occasion, a very powerful individual has, enforced their will upon the whole group, even to the point of bullying, which makes it very uncomfortable, because often these groups are coming together with sort of, a huge focus on the softer side of things. So when someone suddenly becomes sort of quite predatory in that way, it does make it very uncomfortable.
Yeah. And even if there's no one predatory, but you've not sat down and really figured out what you want to do, people will have their own ideas. So very important. And we've got Catherine, thank you, want to do so many things, it's going to be hard to do it all. That's the slide I've put in, and I've learned that in my, my ancient years here. But trying to be clear what you're not going to do is actually, for me, really, really important. Many organizations I've been involved with, they're trying to literally change the world. They're trying to do everything. And actually that means you can, as they say sometimes in Wales, you spread the jam too thin. Nothing that you do is particularly good because you're trying to do so many different things and being pulled in so many different ways. I'm going to share my screen once more. So I'm going to look at values now. So values, they're the basic and fundamental beliefs that guide and motivate your actions and attitudes and actions. And values are really important to the individual. And actually, you can have different values than your group's values, but your group needs to, as an individual, but your group needs to own and understand what their values are. So they need to be agreed by all in your group or organization. Some values should focus on your beliefs, while others may inform the behaviors. Okay, so we've got here for the girl guiding, empowering, inclusive, inspiring, caring, challenging, and fun. So one of the values that all leaders, girl guiding leaders, need to have is that they make their activities fun, because we know what will happen if they don't. Your girl guides will all disappear. Values should be lived by everyone in the group. So if you have a girl guide leader, poor girl guides, I don't know why I'm picking on them, but if you have a girl guide leader who really never does any fun activities, just sets them, I don't know, marching or running around the field, then you need to be able to challenge that and say one of our values is that things should be fun, so we need to make things fun. They need to be clear and understood. And quite often I see values, written values that are so complicated, I don't know what they're talking about. So make sure that everyone, new members and existing members, really know what they are. Right, let's go to the next bit. An absence of values means conflict can arise, which can be difficult to address, because if I've set up let's see, a housing group, and my value is that I want it to be inclusive. I want everyone to be able to apply to be part of this group, or to apply for some of the units that are in the group. If someone says, yeah, but I don't want anyone English coming in. Oh, I probably shouldn't have said that in Wales. But if they said it about a particular minority group or any particular group, I don't want them, then you need to be thinking about that, and you need to have decided what your values are at the beginning. There's a question in the chat. Thanks, Gavin. Okay, anybody worked or been involved in a group where people have different values? Let's see, and we've got a question from, yeah. That's an interesting one, Jackie. Hi, thanks. Do you need to have group values agreed by all? So there might be a couple. No, sorry, Jackie. Can you unmute and tell me what you mean here?
What I mean is that, you know, you start off with a vision, and it's going to adapt and adjust, and, you know, over the years and over time. But it must be that, you know, as a team effort, that actually you're all sort of trying to work towards the same goal, even if you're not, you know, sort of totally and wholly in agreement with everyone. But in the end, you have to have some compromise, so as you all agree. I should have worded not all agree, but all agree to disagree on times, you know, and make it nicer for everyone to be on the same page, but actually moving forwards, you know. And then, but if someone is really adamant that you're doing it in the wrong way, they, you know, it's really hard. We've had lots of challenges through the time we've been trying to do stuff. And, you know, I agree with the chat before, you know, that people feel like you're being bullied by your own team, you know, so it's really hard work. But I think some of the bits where you reform and that, what you said, you know, you can get a lot, it goes all very nicely, and then it's like the circle goes round again and again. Sad.
When new people come in, they can be fantastic and really bring a whole load of new energy. And sometimes it doesn't happen. There's a bit of tension, and sometimes that settles out over time. People get to know each other. The other thing, Jackie, that I found is a useful phrase is, when there is a bit of tension and people go, you know what, in the community allotment, I don't want to grow lettuce, I want to grow cabbage. It's like, well, can we grow a bit? I'm being a bit, whatever. Can we grow both? And can you live with us growing both?
Yeah.
And that phrase, can you live with it, can actually mean, yeah, I hate cabbage, but I like cabbage. But it actually means that people have a sort of get out to go, well, all right then. And that phrase, can you live with it, I find can just sometimes help diffuse some tension. And
compromise, but some people can't handle compromise either, so that's really difficult. And then when you're being bombarded by, no, we've got to do it like this, it's like, no, there's all sorts of ways we can adapt and adjust, you know. But it's very hard when you get someone who's got the tunnel vision.
Absolutely. And there, by agreeing your vision and your values at the beginning, you hopefully have got a good solid base to disagree and have some discussions, but not all out conflict. And that's interesting about the vegan community. Yeah, they're still wanting to join and go vegan, but then getting very cross when we say no. Okay, right. So that's an interesting one. Thank you, Shelley. Really fascinating. So I'm going to Yes, and we've offered support. So consensus building. Yeah, and I can tell you, having spent quite a while, I was saying to the others on the weekend, trying to get some form of consensus. Consensus doesn't tend to take 10 minutes, needs quite a bit of time. I can share that with you another time. So let me share the screen again. And so values are really important. Values tend to be more stable, but they can change over time. I mean, society's changing over time. What is not acceptable now was acceptable 100 years ago, and we're changing. So you do need to revisit your group values, but I would say they're a bit more stable. Right, come on, slides. Finally, we're talking about our mission. So your mission should clearly identify the organization or the group's beneficiaries, right? Who you're actually going to work with. And again, do this at the beginning. Figure out who your beneficiaries are. Otherwise, it's, everyone, or a scattered approach. Or else, for some people, it's only the people who live in my street, not the people who live in my ward or my town. So being clear on that is really important. What the organization or the group's going to do for those beneficiaries. And the word is realistic. I should have it in bold. Realistic outcomes that the group wants to achieve. So Oxfam have got create lasting solutions to poverty, hunger, and social injustice. So that's their mission. Okay. Right. An absence means an individual can more easily take the group in their own desired direction. Again, work with maybe instead of working in Neath Port Talbot, they start working in Carmarthen, even though actually it was formed to work in the county of Neath Port Talbot. Clear mission means that you can end up working with other people, not the intended beneficiaries that you'd initially thought you were forming to support. And the group, if you haven't got a clear mission, there's lack of clarity. And you don't know which direction you're going, which path you're going to go, because you don't know who you're trying to help and what you're trying to achieve. So all of these things are really important. Reading the chat from Lydia, dealing with conflict and finding consensus is made harder in COVID times. Yes, it certainly is, although there are some benefits of having group meetings on Zoom. You're less in the room. So there is a little bit of you can take a slight impassioned view, but yes, I would say that's hard. Okay, next slides. Right. So vision statements. There's two things. If you're a new group, I would definitely say start very early on in the process looking at a vision statement, a statement of your vision. But if you're a more established group, revisit it. Okay, is it fit for purpose? Think 5 to 10 years in the future. That's often a good way. It might be that it's only 1 year for a specific group, but think in the future. What's your group's purpose? Why are you here? Going back to those questions. What will success look like? If you actually achieve your vision, what would it look like? And the questions I often ask are, what would people be saying about the group? What would people be seeing? If it was a housing co-op, they would be seeing people sitting in the garden, having cups of tea, chatting to each other, maybe all as a group working together, painting the building. What would they be hearing? There'd be people saying, oh, yes, I'm going to be helping Jenny later with her house or whatever. Take time. It does take a while. All these things take a while. You can't do it in 10 minutes. Involve everyone, but keep it simple. I see some very complicated vision statements, and certainly I would say keep it simple. Your values. Include everyone in the group. Yeah, certainly if you're forming your values at the beginning, include everyone in the group. If there's new people coming in, you need to share what your values are and ask them if they are happy with them, if they can live with them. But the group as a whole needs to agree their values. Otherwise, you'll get 1 or 2 people off on tangents and you'll have conflict, as we say. When we're doing values, when I'm looking at values with groups, I do ask people to reflect individually first. And this is a good place for all groups. Whenever you, even on Zoom, you can say to people, right, we're going to switch off our mics and our cameras for 5 minutes, and we're going to write out what's important to yourselves individually. Yeah. What's important to you, but also what's important to the group. Because so often people get caught up in this, what we call groupthink. So if I say this is important, I think, oh yeah, well, if Nick says this is really important, I go, yes, that sounds great. And then Tanya says, and this is important, I go, that's good. And then Jackie goes, yeah, this, and I've forgotten what I actually feel. So it's good to get people, especially on Zoom, the old fashioned pen and paper, get people to write them down. Then they can be confidential. They don't actually have to share them all, but they've thought them through themselves. But really share and discuss. And a group of 20 can't discuss values that easily. You have to split them into groups first of all, and then come together as a group, I would say. Agree on a list of values that everyone can commit to. So again, can you live with it? I think with values, I'd want a bit more commitment than can you live with it. But does this sound okay to you? You know, are you happy agreeing to these values? And make sure everyone agrees what the value means and what it looks like in action. So going back to the Girl Guides and having fun, getting people to run around the field every week might be fun for the particular leader. It wouldn't be fun for me if I was a Girl Guide. Wouldn't mind doing it occasionally. Well, I probably would, but I wouldn't want to run around the field every week. So agree what fun means to different people. Really important. Take time to listen and share. Okay. And then we're gonna have a chat in a second, but writing a group mission, right? What's your mission? So people say, oh, just write a mission statement. Can take you forever. Few ways is to draw up is to agree why you're doing it, who you're helping, and what you're going to do and not do. So really think why you're doing X. I would personally, it depends on the size of your group, but if you've got 30 people in a group, I'd get a core group to develop the statements, because there's nothing worse than trying to get 30 people to agree a sentence. You know, you've got your wordsmiths, you've got your people who maybe English, you know, they struggle with spelling and grammar, etc. Oh, it can take ages. So I would develop a number of statements and share options. So get the whole group to agree to it. Use focus groups to develop your statement, might be one way of doing it. Have that whole group discussion once you've shared some options and agree it. And you could get people to vote if they're large numbers or even smaller numbers. Get people to vote. Which one do they feel? Because people need to own that mission statement. I won't say who, but I worked for a charity where they had a mission statement that I just didn't agree with. I didn't work for them very long because it didn't resonate with me, and it didn't really explain what they were doing and who the beneficiaries were, not clear, or what even they were going to do. It was very vague. So make sure your group members agree. Very important, I would say. Okay. Right, I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm going to ask you if anybody has any questions about that or any experiences that they'd like to share. Obviously, be careful how much you share because we're all being recorded. But has anyone had been part of a group where you haven't discussed mission, values, and vision? And maybe had a little bit of tension?
I'll jump in.
Thank you, Gavin.
I feel a little bit more like an outsider now.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. No problem at all. So just personally reflecting on some personal experiences where in the shaping of values and mission statements, it can often turn into a bit of a word salad where there are certain words and certain phrases that people feel need to be included. And so what we've always found useful in the past is actually saying, okay, that's the beautiful phrase we've come up with, but how does that translate into actions? What are the actions that we as an organization or a community will be taking that will reflect this phrase that we've created? And that tends to mean that you end up with a far more stripped down value statement, mission statement, but something that you have more cohesion around, because you've gone through that whole piece of, okay, what does that look like when we are doing what we do? So I just throw that in as my personal experience.
No, the interesting couple of points there. That's really interesting, because you do need to thrash it out. And one of the there was somebody in Welsh government would always say to me when I was talking, what would your Aunt Betty say? So what would your Aunt Betty, the imaginary Aunt Betty, what would they say about your vision statement? Would they understand what on earth you're trying to do? And would they understand it? Would a new person come in, would they understand it? And I think that's sometimes we see mission statements, values, visions, and they're all full of, amazing words that people want to have in, empowering and engaging and everything. And it becomes this just like a thesaurus. So be clear, have enough in it that it means something, but not too much that it confuses people. Anyone else got any comments? Jackie?
Yeah, I totally and utterly agree with everything you said, Megan. It really resonates, and you really try hard, and actually you think you're doing the right thing at the right time, but obviously, there are times when you get it all wrong, and you've got to start again, and you think, oh my gosh, how awful is that, and you're supposed to be setting up well-being, and actually you've aggravated, yourself and others. So,
yes,
but and that's really sad. But it is that bit of that, if people change, if they come infused with the actual vision statement, and it's not really changed massively, the ethos is still much the same, but they've suddenly changed, they don't want it to be that anymore. It's very difficult then for the whole, because you've got a team of consensus, a board of members and a membership that's the vision. And then someone comes along and says, well, no, you're not going to get that. Well, that's what we're aiming for. And if we don't in the end, well, that's fine. It might not be that realistic in some areas, but most of it is. And that's what we're aiming for. Nothing ever changes if you sit back and think, oh, well, we can't do that because people keep telling us we can't do it. And so it is really, really difficult to keep everyone on stream for the same vision, and making, you keep going back to your team and saying, what do you think? What should we do? Here's what and you've changed over the time. But your vision, your ideal ethos at the beginning of actually helping people, and hasn't changed one iota. But you do change the wording, and I think, like Gavin said, it's interesting that the wording, the wordsmiths put stuff together, and people trying to link into that piece rather than to the actual ethos of what you're trying to do as the overall plan. But it's just. And bang off my chest there, I think.
Thank you. No, that's really, really interesting. And actually, Jackie, you're reminding me that, especially if you become a charity and you've formed your group with this statement on your constitution, or your Mems and Arts, if you become a company, you've got to stick to that. And if we're working as a group working, and your overall aim is to work with simply people in Pembrokeshire, and then you go and work in Stretford, actually the Charity Commission says, no, you either have to change your constitution or stop working in Stretford. And I meet too many charities, especially, who've had mission creep or vision creep, and they're starting to do things that is nothing to do what they were originally set up for. Now, it might be that that's great, that's fine, and it is a good idea what they're going to be doing. Working in Stretford is absolutely fine, but they need to be careful and have agreed that as a group, and been checked that is what they want to do. And we've got Shelley here. We jokingly say we're a kind dictatorship. Ha, Shelley, yes, until we have a core group bigger than the few of us established. Yes, and one of the things, of course, is, Shelley, that if you're a small core group of pals, of friends, and I've been part of that myself, and then you're bringing in new people who aren't part of that friendship group, then you can either have tensions, or some groups are very welcoming to new people, but you need to be thinking of these dynamics. So I suppose from all of that, what I would say is forming a group isn't easy. Yeah. And it requires quite a bit of listening. It requires quite a bit of thinking. It's really important. That's why we're doing this, to sort out your vision, you know, the big picture. Why are you doing this? Set out the values, your bottom line, actually. What are our values? If we're going to be inclusive, we can't say that people if we're inclusive to all people, we can't say that the over 60s can't join our group, you know? And then having a statement of exactly who your beneficiaries are and what it is you're doing. If you don't have that, you can easily, as Nick said at the very beginning, go off just at a tangent, and before you know it, you're in a completely different place than you'd originally started. And that's where the tension can start. I'm just aware that that's been a bit whistle stop. And what I would like you to do now is we're going to put you into groups. And Claire, I'm looking at you because I can't do the maths now. We have got 12 people. So if we divide into, and there's sort of 3 of us, so that means there's 9 people. Maybe if we divide into 2 groups, and I will, we've got, so it might be, there we are, we're going to be recorded now. Okay, so yes, you were, I could see some interesting discussions in the group. What I'm going to do is I'm going to share Jamboard 1, and I can see that the group, you've just got 1 post-it, but that's okay. Maybe as we talk, we could add some more, or I can add some more if you want. So group 1, bit about the challenges, but what have been the solutions? We want to be quite solutions focused. Can maybe somebody tell me what they were discussing and what solutions they might have come up? We had mediation, so that's an interesting one. Who was in group 2?
Well,
Group one. Sorry.
We mainly discussed Shelley's area of expertise, and she Gavin gave some solutions and whatever, and it was really interesting. It was really quite useful for me for the future. So I don't know whether you want to highlight that, Shelley.
Maybe Shelley, you could put a post-it up if it's easy, or Gavin. Shelley, shall we have you speak for a second? Oh, right. She's having she's busy.
Hang on.
That's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine. Shelley. Hi, Shelley.
Yes. Hi. Am I on screen?
You're on screen. I can see you. Yes.
Okay. So we're about to sit down to our community lunch now. So
okay.
I have to put it on mute back in a second. But I was kind of looking for advice more than anything about how to encourage people to be more honest in the application process. But I think the end solution, certainly for me with what was said, was that I just have to find a little bit more resilience, because the process does actually work. You find out who's your tribe and who's not when you have people come and stay with you and you work together. And it's just heartbreaking when you get to the storming part and then they storm off. And yeah, it's an exhausting process, but it's a necessary process. So
okay, so that was how to encourage people in the recruitment process, did you say? Sorry, I didn't catch in which process. Sorry.
It was more my concern more was that the trouble that we've had is people not being entirely honest in their application process to join us. There's a lot of very nervous preppers out there that love the idea that we're going for self-sustainability and want to jump on our bandwagon and then pretend they share our ethics and pretend they like us.
Yeah.
But yeah. It comes out in the wash. You find out soon enough. It's just really, I was looking for a bit of advice about perhaps how you can create more authentic connections where people are more willing to be kind of pointed in the right direction of where their tribe is without taking offense. I think that's
right.
Because there's so many people. I run a networking group of sort of 3,500 vegans all looking for each other to do eco villages.
Wow.
And there's not enough springing up because everyone is pretending they like the idea of their project when actually they want an animal sanctuary, not a a growing project, and then someone else pretending actually they're really happy with the animal sanctuary but they're allergic to horses, and you know,
right,
there's all these different things that people go through, like a job interview to try and get in on a good co-op. So that's all we talked about, and none of us really understood the jam board. I'm really sorry.
Oh, that's all right, that's okay. I've popped in things here, I'm not sure if you would agree with me, but I've put that one of your issues was encourage people in the application to encourage people to apply. Is it to apply? Sorry, I haven't written this correctly.
Yeah. It's not to apply. We have lots and lots of applications. It's to be a bit more honest in their application forms. We're really struggling with people making out that they're ideal for our project and that our visions are in alignment, only to discover down the line that actually they're not at all. And I'm sure it must be the same with other people, where someone wants affordable housing, so they're prepared. It's a bit like that Green Card film, isn't it? We've discovered it's a bit like that.
Okay, so. And as you say, in that storming stage there, you suddenly find that they've got a whole different vision. Their own individual vision is very different than yours. So what we've said here is, I'm only summarizing, but be more resilient and have clarity about our vision. And I think you said something about being more, word firm is not correct, but be clearer. Is it? I'm not sure. What would you say, Shelley? You've got lunch in a minute, I know.
Transparent might be a good word.
Yeah, and clarity and transparency. Okay. There we are. I can't spell transparency. Okay, anybody else got any ideas about those ones? Anything else from group one? Sorry, I'm trying to multitask here. Anything else from group one about the challenges of group working and any solutions?
Well, we sort of went off from that really, and then started talking about truly affordability, you know, because of the housing and youngsters, you know, because you know, they're not actually able to get on the market in the first place. And we were saying, you know, they're not really truly affordable. And Ellen, working up north, was saying, you know, that their main aim is to try and find out why that is and how they can help those people. And I think that's one of the reasons we initially started our organisation as well, was because local people couldn't afford to live locally. They were all migrating out, and you know, the solution is to try and get more truly affordable housing to help them, you know, and that's
so that's interesting. Even listening to you now, Jackie, I'm clear on who your beneficiaries are. It's young people who can't afford things, and that you know what you are, why you are there. If I came and joined your group and hadn't heard that, I might be thinking, oh, they're talking about old age pensioners, or they're talking about refugees or whoever. So again, being very clear, it just helps. And it might be, if I want to work with refugees and that's not your particular client, then I don't come and work with you. Like Shelley was talking, I go to a different eco committee or eco village or whatever. Let's have, can we have group 2 then, and I will share the screen and we'll look at groups 2's ideas. So who was in group 2?
Lydia, did you want a feedback?
Yeah, thanks to Megan for helping us work out how to put our post-its up. Yeah, Tanya and Katrin were with us. We also talked a little bit about Abu Dhabi, where they've got terrible problems with not having enough housing for local people. And mentioned Helen, who was on Radio 4, who luckily somebody knows, who I'd like to meet up with. But she was talking about the listening project on Sunday or Sunday,
yes,
some time ago, about that issue. But however, we talked about people in groups, and I don't know that's what we were supposed to do, but we said that sometimes there were unrealistic expectations coming to groups. There was conflicts of goals, And also, I think Tanya brought up engagement. Maybe she can expand on that later. Yeah, we also had experience of predatory members who joined, who didn't understand conflicts of interest. And I think Tanya again was saying that occasionally they have a meeting where an individual might take over the meeting with their own agenda, and yeah, dominating personalities taking over. We had a key member talked about when a key member or person in the project gets really disillusioned and can create a downer for all. So those were the points that we raised. So
I'm going to suggest here that ground rules, clear ground rules, is, can really, really help when you've got individuals and dominating personalities. But I also am fully aware that it needs good leadership. And myself and Nick and Claire were talking about this while you were in your rooms, about how it doesn't need to be hierarchical leadership, but you do need someone taking on the role of a chair, I would say, at most meetings. Otherwise, it just goes all over the place. But it doesn't need to be the same chair every time, or it could be somebody who is the same chair. That chair also needs support and needs the skills. So it might be that the chairs or people who want to be chairs get training and, form a little buddy group so they support each other, because it can be a bit of a challenge being a chair. Has anyone got any solutions, suggestions about any of these cards? Anyone else in the group? I need to go on the green cards.
I think clear policies and code of conduct can be useful. I know that's something that I actually had to use.
Right.
Was, everybody signing up to a code of conduct, and then, if somebody's consistently in breach of that code of conduct, it allows for that accountability.
And I'm going to add, go back, I would do after this session, go back to your vision, why are you here, and your values, that we do listen to everyone and we are inclusive, and your mission statement. So we're not going to be, a mission statement says our beneficiaries are in Port Talbot. So unfortunately, we can't be supporting people in Scotland, So it's just that, that phrase for me is, let's take a step back here, can really help. And even if you say to everyone in the group, what I'd like us to do is take a step back and write on a piece of paper, let's all go on mute. Let's write on a piece of paper what our issues are. So people actually, rather than getting caught up in the emotion, start to look at the facts. It can really, really help. Just take the heat out of an argument, we're seeing an argument, but I don't necessarily, the heat out of maybe some contentious subjects, and it can just help people reflect a bit. So that can be helpful.
Can I add another suggestion in there as well?
Please, Gavin.
Which I'm sure this is probably something you've done yourself, Megan, as well. I think it's useful at times to actually, especially when it becomes very heated and it is very emotional, and sometimes people are bringing a lot of baggage into the room, and often it's the baggage that's getting in the way. And that's when I think an external person coming in who is trained in communication and also in terms of how to help groups understand the differences in communication styles. Often these challenges can come about because someone talks very directly, but that's just their mannerism. That's not necessarily, the different. I forget the old Myers-Briggs things, isn't it? Along those lines. But having that external person come in and act as a sort of mediator to help people better understand the different communication styles and to get to the roots of these things, I think can be very useful, especially for the person who is perhaps being too domineering. They may not see it and they may not want to hear it when it's coming from their colleagues, but when an external person comes in and reflects it, that maybe allow them to become more willing to take it on board.
Yes, as an external facilitator, I sometimes say things that I know everyone else wants to say, but they're very happy for me as an outsider to challenge people, but in a supportive way, because people, when we say, oh, they're very difficult, it's their behavior that's difficult, and it's really useful to understand where they're coming from and what is the drivers that affect them. But we're moving into conflict, which is actually interesting, because Nick and myself, we've been talking a little bit about how you get to consensus, and it can be a challenge for me. It's listening to everyone, but there's some stages for me, which is one, let's go back to the facts, because often when people are getting into conflict or there's confusion, let's go to the facts. And this is where your vision and your mission and your values, we agreed, or our group is here to do X, and let's look at the facts. Does what we're saying, will that achieve X? And that's often a great level. It really helps people come back to the main reason why you're here. I'm aware of the time, actually. Is there anything else that people want to add? Tanya's waving her hands. Hi, Tanya. No, you're just waving. That's
yeah. I was fidgeting. Sorry.
You're fidgeting. I'm fine to fidget. I'm fine with fidgeting. I fidget. Anyone else got anything they'd like to say? I'm going to stop sharing for a second, just so I can peep with people.
Can I just make a couple of comments?
Thanks, Nick.
Yes, I totally agree with what Gavin was saying around having someone external. And to be honest, I think it's really healthy for all groups to have someone external come in, particularly if they're either revisiting what we've been speaking about today, or they're trying to put it into place for the first time. I also think, I totally agree with what Tanya said around clear policies and codes of conduct. I think the concept of having a predatory member who doesn't understand the conflict of interest and trying to push something forward for their own agenda, I think it can be very difficult for a group to challenge that. But if you've got those ground rules in place, it's a lot easier to challenge without then causing conflict within the group. Another thing that sort of sprung to mind as well, that I have found quite often causes conflict is the capacity of the group members to be able to take actions forward. And you can end up with just a few key members of the group doing a lot of work, or what seems to be the majority of the work, and then that can cause resentment. I think, again, it's possibly useful to put group members into different categories. And if there are people that are really useful to sit in on meetings, but really can't do anything outside the meetings, they could potentially not be classed as a full group member, maybe not have those voting rights or whatever, but then still be classed as maybe an advisor. So just to sort of just flag that up.
And yeah, people, people come with all sorts of, we use the word baggage, but all sorts of passions and all sorts of dreams and visions, and they can't be, you need to hear them before we dismiss them. So that just listening to people can really help. And that's harder online, but you can have a coffee session after this session or before the session, or just get people to share, spend a whole session sharing what people's individual visions are. Okay. I'm just aware 1.5 hours on a hot, beautiful hot day in Wales. No rain, fantastic. What would be helpful for Claire and Nick, myself, is I now have another link, and you'll be cursing me, but there is a link to a Mentimeter, and I'm not sure if you've used this before, but if you click on the link I've put in the chat, just asking 3 key learnings or insights from today's session, it would be useful for us to find out. I know that there's lots of interesting, I mean, we could talk for a long, long time about this, and there's potential, like Nick said, well, Nick's running a lot, there's going to be a lot more sessions over the summer. They look great, actually, fantastic that you're doing that. So I'd suggest you join as many of them as you can, but it might be that there's other sessions that Nick can sort out. Going to hand over to you, Nick, and
yeah, I will say that, yeah, anybody that signed up today to today's session, it's the booking side of things was facilitated by Claire at the Wales Cooperative Centre. So I believe that automatically puts you onto the mailing list to keep up to date with other events and activities that will be coming up.
Great.
Yeah, it will do, and I'll send a follow-up email after this as well with some of the links that we've discussed, and a link to the recording as well.
Yeah. Yeah, and just really to finish, just to say, oh, Jackie, do you want to just say something quickly?
Yeah, I've just gone into the questions and you can only put one word. You can't put a sentence.
You can put a few words then in.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
As long as you know it's all going to come as one long.
That's all right. I can. Yeah, that's fine.
Thanks.
Thank you, Jackie.
Thanks, everyone.
That's great. And Shelley, I don't do mediation, just to check, but I do know people who do, but also Nick, the DTA and the Wales Co-op have got some fantastic people who can mentor where there's conflict. So that would be, I'd suggest you contact with them. Okay.
Yeah, so just to say that, like we mentioned, today's session would be on the Communities Creating Homes YouTube channel, and so please feel free to share that with other group members. And if you're interested in, some of you already receiving support through the Communities Creating Homes programme, but if you're not, either get in touch with Claire or myself and we can support and facilitate that. Okay, well, thank you very much everyone for attending today, and thank you very much, Megan.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Nice to meet everybody.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you all.
Bye now.
Thanks for letting
Very much, everyone.
Great. Have great discussions about your visions and your values. Bye bye. Have a lovely day. It is beautiful out there. We should all be outside, really. I can see the sun
Nick,
behind
I'll catch
Tanya.
you again.
Yes, thanks Tanya for coming.
No worries. See you soon. Bye now.
Bye. Bye. Au revoir.
Should we stop the recording quickly? Is that okay?